My name is Clara Matthews, and I'm 32 years old. A year and a half ago, I would have sworn my life was stable, even blessed. I had a husband I loved, David, and a career I was proud of as an editor at a small but respected publishing house. We lived in a cozy apartment tucked in a quiet neighborhood of Charleston, and after years of waiting, I was finally pregnant. To me, it felt like a miracle written into my body, a new chapter opening after so much longing. I used to fall asleep smiling, imagining the tiny heartbeat growing inside me, imagining David's face when he'd finally hold our child. He would sometimes rest his head on my belly and whisper, "Our little star," as if the baby could already hear him. I believed him then. I believed every word. But even in those warm evenings of whispered promises, there was a shadow that I could never shake. Linda, David's mother. From the very first day she met me, she decided I was not enough. Not enough for her perfect son, not enough for the family name, not enough in ways she never stopped pointing out. At first, it was little things, criticizing how I cooked, how I ironed David's shirts, asking pointed questions about why I hadn't climbed higher in my career. An editor? Shouldn't you try for management? A woman with ambition can inspire her husband too. Her smile never reached her eyes when she said it. I cried after those visits more times than I could count. David, instead of defending me, would wrap his arms around me and say, "She means well, Clara. She's just worried about me, about us." But deep down, I knew Linda's worry had nothing to do with care. It was about control. Eventually, I learned to swallow my hurt. I would paste on a polite smile at family dinners, knowing every word I said would be measured, weighed, found lacking. Over time, I saw less of her. David still called her daily, visited her weekly, as though tied by an invisible cord I could never cut. When I finally got pregnant, I expected Linda's disapproval to grow sharper, but strangely, it softened. She began calling, asking about my health, offering to bring meals. David explained it as simple excitement. "She's just thrilled about being a grandmother. You know, she's dreamed of this for years." Against my better judgment, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe motherhood would finally open a door between us. Maybe we could learn to stand on the same side, if not as friends, then at least as two women who loved the same child. For most of my pregnancy, things seemed smooth enough. A little morning sickness in the early months, then a spell of mild anemia. Doctors said it wasn't serious. I worked until 6 months along before maternity leave gave me time to slow down. David was supportive, at least at first. He came to my doctor's visits, brought me ginger tea when I felt nauseous, carried heavy groceries without complaint. But slowly I noticed him pulling away. He began missing appointments, claiming last-minute meetings. At home, his phone buzzed constantly. He smiled at the screen more than he smiled at me. When I asked, he brushed it off. "Just work, Clara," or "Mom." I wanted to believe him. I forced myself to. Yet sometimes, when he stood by the window, whispering into his phone, his back turned, I felt a hollowness open in my chest, like a warning I wasn't ready to name. By my 7th month, my body felt heavier every day. My ankles swelled, and I grew dizzy easily. But my cousin Sarah insisted we come to her birthday party. "Just for an hour," she begged over the phone. "You have to let everyone see your beautiful belly." I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay curled under a blanket with tea and silence. But Sarah's enthusiasm and David's insistence wore me down. "It'll be good for you," he said, brushing my hair back from my face. "Family, cake, some laughter. You need that." The party was in a little cafe not far from our apartment. When we arrived, the tables were already crowded with relatives and a few close friends. People clapped when they saw me. "Look at you, Clara. Glowing!" someone exclaimed. I tried to smile, though I felt anything but glowing. My back ached. My hands trembled slightly when I lifted my glass of sparkling water. David sat beside me, but his eyes kept dropping to his phone, his thumb dancing over the screen. I told myself not to mind, not to ruin the evening with suspicion. But it stung, sitting there with our baby kicking inside me, while my husband seemed more connected to whoever was on the other end of that phone than to me. 2 hours in, I began to feel strange. Not just tired, but as if my body no longer belonged to me. A heaviness pulled at my eyelids. Dizziness spun the room into a blur. I whispered to David, "I think we should go." He glanced at me, irritation flickering across his face. "Already? Clara, the cake isn't even here yet. Just sit a little longer." But the pressure in my chest grew unbearable. I excused myself and staggered to the bathroom. Cold water against my face steadied me for a moment, but my reflection in the mirror scared me. My lips were pale, my eyes shadowed. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. I leaned against the tiled wall, whispering to myself, "Just breathe, just breathe." When I returned to the table, I leaned close to David and whispered, "Please, we need to leave. Now." He sighed, annoyed, but finally stood. He apologized to Sarah, joked about me being overly delicate, and guided me outside. The evening air cooled my skin, but the weakness remained, crawling deeper into me with every step. In the taxi, the dizziness returned so sharply I had to grip his arm to stay upright. I don't remember the ride. Only flashes, climbing the dark stairwell of our building because the elevator was broken, my breath catching, my legs threatening to give way. On the third floor, I almost fell. "Clara, you're fine," David muttered, supporting me half-heartedly. "You're just tired. Stop panicking." "No," I whispered, my voice thin, desperate. "I'm not fine. Please, David, call an ambulance." He rolled his eyes as though I'd asked him to fetch a glass of water, not my life. "You're exaggerating again. Just lie down, you'll see." But then the intercom buzzed. A woman's voice filled the stairwell. "Linda." "Son, it's me. I came by to check on you." Minutes later, she was in our apartment. I lay on the couch, my skin clammy, my vision tunneling. Linda stood above me, her lips pursed in disapproval. "What now? Sick again?" "Oh, Clara, pregnancy isn't an illness. When I carried David, I worked until the very last day. You've been resting for 2 months already, and now you can't even handle a little party?" Her words sliced into me, but I had no strength left to argue. My voice barely carried. "David, please, ambulance." David glanced at his mother. For a second, I thought he might finally listen, but Linda shook her head, sharp and cold. "Don't, son, don't call. She's pretending. It's just another one of her acts to get attention." The room tilted. My arms, my legs, numb. Darkness swallowed me whole. The last thing I heard before everything slipped away was Linda's voice, calm and commanding. "Don't call. She's pretending." I woke to a world of white. The ceiling above me was cracked in the shape of a jagged lightning bolt, and the air smelled sharp. Disinfectant, medicine, something metallic. A monitor beeped steadily to my left, its rhythm alien yet strangely reassuring. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then the weight in my body, the dryness in my throat, the tug of IV lines taped to my arms, told me otherwise. I wasn't home. I was in a hospital. Panic shot through me. My hands flew instinctively to my belly. A monitor screen blinked to life nearby, 2 green lines rising and falling. Not 1, but 2. For a moment, my breath caught. 2 heartbeats. I gasped, trying to sit up, but dizziness pinned me back down. A nurse hurried over, a young woman with tired eyes but a kind smile. "Easy, easy. Stay still. You've been through a lot." My lips cracked when I whispered, Where? Where am I? What happened? Who brought me here?" "You're in the maternity pathology ward," she explained gently, checking the drip above my bed. "You were admitted with severe preeclampsia. High blood pressure, risk of placental abruption. It's serious, but you're stable now. The ambulance brought you in just in time." "Ambulance?" My mind spun. Who called it? Was it my husband?" She hesitated, a flicker of discomfort in her expression. "The records say it was your neighbor. She heard noises in your apartment, then silence. She came to check and found you unconscious. The paramedics said the door was wide open. You were alone." Alone. The word stabbed through me, sharper than any needle. My husband had left me. My mother-in-law had left me. Both of them walked out while I lay on the floor, 7 months pregnant, fighting for breath. I pressed my hand against my belly again, terrified. "The baby? Is my baby okay?" The nurse's gaze softened. "Babies," she corrected quietly. "You're carrying twins." For a heartbeat, the world froze. I thought I misheard. "Twins?" "Yes," she nodded. "One fetus was hidden behind the other during earlier scans. It happens, especially when they share a sac. But Clara, one of them is weaker, smaller. His heartbeat is irregular. We'll monitor closely, but you both need complete rest." Her words fell like stones into water, rippling through every part of me. 2 babies? And one of them might not survive? Before I could form another question, a doctor entered, a middle-aged woman with cropped hair and clear, steady eyes. She looked at me with professional calm, but I sensed the weight in her tone. Clara, you gave us quite a scare. If the ambulance had been even 30 minutes later, the consequences might have been irreversible. Preeclampsia is nothing to take lightly. We'll be keeping you here until delivery. That may mean weeks." Her words blurred. I was still reeling from the earlier revelation. 2 heartbeats, 2 lives inside me. And the man who should have been here, the father, wasn't. I forced the words out, barely audible. "And my husband? He didn't come?" The nurse looked away, and the doctor only said, "You can call him if you'd like. Your phone is on the nightstand." My fingers shook as I picked up the cracked phone. The screen lit with dozens of missed calls. Messages from David. "Clara, how are you? Text me when you wake up. Sorry I can't come right now. Mom said visiting would only upset you." Mom said, always her, always Linda. Even in the face of my collapsing body, his loyalty belonged to her. Tears stung my eyes, but I swallowed them. I couldn't let stress overwhelm me, not with 2 fragile lives depending on me now. The doctor touched my hand before leaving. "For now, the goal is simple. Keep your blood pressure stable. Monitor both babies. If complications worsen, we may need to do an emergency C-section early. But for now, hope." Her honesty gave me both fear and strange relief. At least she wasn't lying, not like others in my life. When the door closed, the silence pressed in. The beeping of 2 heartbeats on the monitor felt like a plea. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Hold on, both of you. Please, hold on for me." Hours blurred. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting medication. My body was exhausted, but my mind refused to rest. I replayed everything: the party, the dizziness, David brushing off my pleas, Linda's sharp voice cutting through the dark. "Don't call. She's pretending." Was I really so insignificant to them? Or worse, was there something deliberate in her cold dismissal? By evening, I finally gathered strength to call my mother. She lived nearly 250 miles away. Her voice on the phone cracked with panic. "I'm leaving tonight, Clara. Don't you worry. I'll be there by morning." Then I called Jessica, my best friend since college, the one who knew every detail about my battles with Linda. She exploded in fury. "Unbelievable. They left you like that? I'll be there tomorrow. Don't you dare think you're alone." The solidarity of those 2 voices wrapped around me like a blanket. My family, my chosen, and my blood would come. They would be here, unlike David. That night, I couldn't sleep. The monitor pulsed quietly beside me. 2 heartbeats, 1 steady, 1 faint. My hand stayed on my belly, stroking circles, whispering promises. "Stay with me, little ones. Mommy loves you. I'll fight for you. Don't leave me." At some point, exhaustion dragged me under, and I dreamed. I stood barefoot on a wide, endless beach. The sky was twilight, violet fading into black. On the horizon, 2 tiny figures appeared. Children, waving at me, with small, eager hands. I tried to run to them, but the sand sucked at my feet, slowing me down. The closer I came, the more one figure began to fade, as if swallowed by mist. I screamed, reaching out, but my arms passed through nothingness. The other child stood frozen, watching, while his twin vanished. I woke with a strangled cry, heart pounding. Sweat plastered my hair to my forehead. The monitor beside me beeped louder than before. I froze. There was only one rhythm. Panic rose like fire in my chest. "Nurse, nurse, please!" A nurse rushed in. "Calm down, Clara. Sometimes the weaker twin shifts position and the machine loses track. We'll do an ultrasound in the morning. Try not to panic." Not panic? How could I not, with the ghost of that dream still clinging to me? I lay awake until dawn, watching every flicker of the monitor, whispering to the darkness, begging both of my babies to fight. When the first light of morning touched the curtains, the door opened. My mother entered, hair messy from the overnight drive, eyes red but fierce with determination. She wrapped her arms around me, and for the first time since collapsing, I felt safe. But safety was fragile, like everything else in my life now. And deep inside, a seed of suspicion took root. What if Linda's words that night weren't just cruelty? What if she had wanted me to collapse? The morning sun filtered weakly through the blinds, casting pale lines across the sterile hospital walls. My mother sat at my bedside, still in the clothes she had worn for the overnight drive, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her hands were steady as they wrapped around mine. "Oh, Clara," she whispered, pressing her forehead against my knuckles. "When I heard your voice last night, I thought my heart would stop. I should have been here sooner. I should have—" "Mom?" I cut in gently, though my throat trembled. It's not your fault. You came. That's what matters. Her tears spilled anyway, silent and hot, falling onto my hand. For years, she had worried about Linda's influence on David, had warned me that his blind devotion to his mother could ruin our marriage. I never wanted to admit she was right. And now here I was, hospitalized, carrying twins whose lives hung in the balance, while David wasn't even at my side. The doctor returned mid-morning to check on me. She moved the cold probe across my belly, her eyes fixed on the screen. I couldn't breathe until she finally nodded. They're both alive, she said. The stronger twin is developing normally. The smaller one, still behind, but fighting. Relief washed over me so hard I almost sobbed. They're both still here, I whispered to my mom. They're still holding on. But the doctor's words stayed sharp in my chest. Fighting. My babies were already fighting for their lives before they had even taken their first breaths. After the doctor left, Mom straightened in her chair, her face hardening. Where is David? Why isn't he here? I looked away, unable to answer. The truth was a knot of shame and rage inside me. My husband hadn't been the one to save me. He hadn't even stayed to see if I survived. He had walked out, guided by his mother's cold command, leaving me unconscious and alone. He texted me, I muttered finally. He said he can't come, that his mother thinks it would upset me. My mom's face went crimson. Upset you? You nearly died, Clara. And those babies, his babies, were in danger. What kind of man abandons his wife like that? Her fury filled the room, but I didn't stop her. Her anger was my anger, only spoken aloud. Later that afternoon, Jessica burst in, breathless from rushing across town. Her arms were full, fruit, toiletries, a hairbrush, even a new pair of pajamas in a bright floral pattern. You look like death, honey, she announced without filter, setting everything down. But you're still beautiful. Don't argue with me. Despite the heaviness in my chest, I laughed, a choked, shaky laugh that turned into tears. Jessica pulled me into a careful hug, mindful of the IV lines. I swear, if I see David right now, I'll wring his neck, she muttered fiercely. And don't even get me started on his mother. She's a viper, Clara, always has been. I closed my eyes, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender and coffee. With my mother on one side and Jessica on the other, I felt, for the first time in days, that I wasn't completely defenseless. The three of us sat together for hours. Mom unpacked her things and spoke about the room she had rented nearby, determined to stay until the birth. Jessica promised daily visits, bringing whatever I needed. Their plans, their voices, built a fragile wall of safety around me. But even behind that wall, fear gnawed at me. That night, sleep carried me back to the dream. The beach again. The endless stretch of sand. Two small figures on the horizon. They waved, their hands bright against the dimming sky. I tried to run, but the sand sucked at my feet, slowing me, dragging me down. My breath tore in my throat as I reached out. This time, I saw their faces more clearly. Two boys, their eyes like mirrors of my own. One smiled shyly, his form steady. The other wavered, blurred, as though the wind itself wanted to carry him away. No! I screamed, stumbling forward, arms outstretched. Stay with me! The weaker child's form flickered, fading like mist. And then I saw her, Linda. Standing further down the shore, her hands clasped calmly in front of her, watching with cold eyes as one of the children dissolved into nothingness. Her lips curved into a smile, not warm, not proud, a smile of triumph. I jolted awake with a strangled cry, drenched in sweat. The monitor beside me beeped rapidly, 2 heartbeats still audible, but one faint, fragile. The nurse hurried in, checked my vitals, and urged me to calm down. But I couldn't. The image of Linda's cruel smile lingered, as real as the IV dripping into my arm. Was it just my mind projecting fears into dreams? Or was my subconscious piecing together a truth I refused to face? The next morning, David finally called. His voice was flat, distracted. How are you? The baby's okay? Do you really care? The words slipped out before I could stop them. A pause. Clara, please don't start. I'm under pressure. Work's been insane and Mom's been sick. I nearly laughed at the absurdity. Sick? She had enough strength to stand in our apartment and tell you not to call an ambulance while I was passing out in front of you. He went silent. The kind of silence that told me he wasn't searching for words. He was searching for lies. David, I whispered, my voice breaking. I could have died. Our babies could have died. And you left me. Another pause, then, I'll come tomorrow, I promise. Tomorrow, always tomorrow. When the call ended, I set the phone aside, my hand trembling. A part of me wanted to scream into the receiver, demand answers, demand remorse. But the other part, the part that was now a mother, even if not yet in practice, knew stress could harm the babies more than his betrayal ever could. That day stretched endlessly. Nurses checked me. My mother sat reading at my side. Jessica cracked jokes to make me smile. But my thoughts circled the same haunting truth. The man I trusted most had abandoned me. By evening, when the lights dimmed and the hallway outside grew quiet, I pressed my hand to my belly again. The twins shifted faintly beneath my touch. I'm here, I whispered to them. Even if no one else is, I am, and I will never leave you. A tiny kick answered me, as if one of them had heard. The stronger one, perhaps. The weaker twin remained still. I closed my eyes, holding on to that faint movement, that tiny reassurance. And yet, in the back of my mind, Linda's voice echoed, low and poisonous. Don't call. She's pretending. It wasn't just cruelty. It wasn't just indifference. A dark suspicion coiled inside me, growing sharper with each passing hour. What if my collapse hadn't been an accident at all? Morning arrived thin and gray, a sheet of light slipping around the edges of the blinds. My mother had fallen asleep in the visitor's chair, chin tucked to her chest, one hand still on the blanket over my legs, as if guarding me, even in dreams. The monitors hummed their counterpoint. One rhythm, sure and even, the other faint, stubborn, alive. I counted the beats the way sailors count waves, praying the weaker one would keep cresting. Around 10, the door swung open and David stepped in with a bouquet of white roses and the smell of cold air clinging to his coat, cologne threaded with a stale trace of cigarettes. For a second, the room felt smaller. He looked thinner than I remembered, dark crescents under his eyes, posture pitched forward like he'd been running from something he couldn't name. Hi, he said softly, raising the flowers, as if they were proof of something. Can I? I nodded. He set the roses in a plastic pitcher the nurse had left on the windowsill and came closer, stopping right before our shadows touched. How are you feeling? Alive, I said. It came out flatter than I intended. The babies are holding on. He blinked at the plural just once, then pasted on a smile. That's amazing. Twins. Wow. I can't believe... Why didn't the doctor see it before? Hidden twin, I said. It happens. Silence stretched. The rose's petals trembled in the air conditioning. David rubbed his knuckles with his thumb, a nervous habit I knew from years of quiet dinners and long car rides. Clara, I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I panicked. Mom said visiting would stress you. Mom said. The words tasted metallic. Did Mom also say to leave the door wide open when you walked out? He flinched. What? The paramedics said that? The records did. My voice was steady, but my pulse wasn't. A neighbor called the ambulance, not you. He swallowed, eyes skittering to the roses, then to my mother asleep in the chair, then to the floor. I should have stayed. I know. Mom needed me home. She hasn't been well, and she looks strong enough to tell you not to call an ambulance, I said. He closed his eyes like a man stepping into cold water. I made a mistake. He reached for my hand, hesitated, then set it down again on the blanket instead. I'll fix it. I'll be here, every day. The monitor's numbers hiccuped. A nurse poked her head in, assessing the room with a practiced glance. Everything okay? We're fine, I said. David pulled a small brown bottle from his pocket, the kind with a child-proof cap. I brought something. Mom swears by it. Just some herbal drops for calming. Good for blood pressure. A few under the tongue and... No, I said, more sharply than I intended. He stared at me. I softened my tone. The doctors don't want me taking anything they didn't prescribe. He turned the bottle in his fingers, label flashing once, unfamiliar brand, crooked sticker, then slid it back into his pocket. Right, of course. His phone lit up on the tray beside the bed, the screen flashing an initial and a heart. He flipped it face down with practiced speed, but not before my stomach flipped with it. Work? I asked. Yeah, he said too quickly. The audit team is... They need me. The audit team texts you with a heart? Color rose along his jaw. It's a group joke, Clara. He tried to smile. It didn't reach his eyes. You know how they are. I said nothing. He reached toward my belly, tentative. May I? I nodded because he was their father and because I didn't want the nurse to come back to find my blood pressure spiking. His palm hovered, then settled. He waited for movement, the faint flutter that had once turned us into a couple who whispered to the dark. When nothing happened, he cleared his throat and said too brightly, "Hey there, baby." "Babies," I corrected. "Babies," he echoed, as if testing a word in a language he didn't speak. My mother stirred then, blinking awake, her gaze sharpening the moment she saw David. She didn't say anything, only stood and smoothed the blanket, the small domestic gesture drawing a line he couldn't cross. "I'm getting coffee," she said, and left without looking at him. He watched the door close. "She hates me. She's protecting me. And I'm not?" He laughed once, brittle. "Clara, I'm here." "Now," I said, "you weren't when I needed you." He took the blow and didn't swing back. "I'll come tomorrow," he said after a moment. "I'll bring the car seat, the stroller catalog, whatever you need. We'll plan. We'll make this right." He kept talking about paint colors for the nursery, a twin stroller he'd seen online, a video his mother sent about swaddling. But his words floated above me like helium balloons I couldn't reach. I watched his mouth move and thought of the way he'd said baby, singular, out of habit or hope. I thought of the bottle in his pocket, the phone turned face down, the way guilt had a smell when it mixed with cologne and old smoke. The nurse returned to check my vitals. "Blood pressure's creeping," she warned gently. "Let's keep conversations calm." "I should go," David said quickly, eager to be the reasonable one. "Rest. I'll be back tomorrow." He brushed a kiss across my temple like we were acting out someone else's marriage, then gathered the flowers' cellophane and left. When the door clicked shut, the room exhaled. I stared at the roses in the borrowed pitcher. A petal had already loosened, sagging at the edge as if reconsidering its place. My mother slipped back in with paper cups and a look that could cut glass. "He brought drops?" "He said herbs," I answered. I said no. She set one cup down and took my hand again. "Good girl." Then, more softly, "Do you want me to limit his visits?" I thought of the beeps, the twins' fragile choreography. "No, not yet. I want him where I can see him." She understood. Mothers always do. The doctor came by at noon, checked my swelling, my labs, the steadiness of both heartbeats. "You're stable," she said, "but consider short visits, low stimulus. Anything that spikes your pressure puts both babies at risk." "I understand," I said. "Doctor, if I asked the nurses not to accept outside food for me, would that be possible?" Her eyes flicked to mine, quick and perceptive. "We can put a note in your chart. Hospital food only. Please." After she left, I tried to sleep, but the fog that took me wasn't rest. The beach came back, the violet sky, the sand that held me like hands. 2 boys again on the horizon, one bright as noon, the other flickering like a candle near a window. I walked, and the light shifted, and there, far behind them, watching, stood Linda in a pale coat that the wind didn't dare ruffle. "Go away," I said to her. My voice came out as a breath. "Go away." She smiled. "You're so dramatic, Clara. It's just a complication." The flickering boy wavered, and I woke with my mouth open like I'd been swallowing the ocean. The weaker rhythm had stuttered, then found itself, as if clinging to the sound of my voice on its way back. Jessica arrived in the late afternoon with magazines and a stubborn kind of sunshine. "You look better," she said, then leaned close. "He came?" "He came," I said. "And?" "He brought roses," I answered. "And excuses, and a bottle I didn't open." Her eyes sharpened. "Good. Keep not opening things." She squeezed my shoulder. "I brought you the only safe contraband." She held up a pair of ridiculous fuzzy socks with tiny embroidered stars. "For cosmic babies." I laughed, and the monitor settled a fraction, as if the room approved. By evening, the ward quieted to the gentle hush of machines and tired footsteps. My mother read in the chair. Jessica dozed against the window, with the socks pulled over her hands like mittens. I lay awake, staring at the hairline crack in the ceiling, the shape of a lightning bolt, and tried to follow it to its endpoint. David would come tomorrow. He would stand where he had stood, say what he had said, promise what he had promised. Maybe he would mean it. Maybe he would want to. But the gap between wanting and doing was a ravine I no longer felt safe crossing with him. I pressed both hands to my belly, feeling for the faintest flutter. "I'm here," I whispered again. "I'm not going anywhere." The stronger beat answered first, confident, steady, then the weaker one, a small echo practicing courage. I closed my eyes and let the two rhythms braid themselves into something like a prayer. I could survive disappointment. I could survive abandonment. What I couldn't survive was the suspicion that what happened to me wasn't accident, but intent. And that suspicion was growing teeth. The next few days blurred into a rhythm of hospital lights, nurse check-ins, and the low, constant beeping of the monitor beside me. Each sound felt like a reminder. One baby strong, the other struggling, but still here. My mother remained rooted by my side, steady as a tree, while Jessica breezed in and out like a whirlwind. Always armed with fruit she knew I wouldn't eat, magazines I half read, and words sharp enough to slice through my darker thoughts. David kept his word, at least outwardly. He came every day, usually in the afternoons, carrying something meant to prove his devotion. Flowers, juice, books, always something. Always too late. He would sit, smile too brightly, ask about the babies, and then glance at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. I played along, nodded, smiled faintly, pretended because I needed peace. Pretended because the doctors warned me stress could push my blood pressure too high, could endanger both lives inside me. Pretended because I was beginning to suspect that the truth, the one twisting just beyond my grasp, was worse than silence. It was late one evening, after Mom and Jessica had gone and the ward had settled into its hushed night rhythm, that I reached for my phone. Not to call David, not to scroll through messages, but to check my email, a thing I hadn't done in weeks. The inbox overflowed. Newsletters, work reminders, spam. I deleted, skimmed, answered what needed answering. Then, in the deleted folder, a subject line caught my eye. Can't stop thinking of you. I frowned. It was from David. But why would David email me? We never used email with each other. Messages, calls, face-to-face, that was us. And this, I hadn't seen it before. My heart thudded. Fingers trembling, I opened it. Dear Anna, I can't get you out of my head after our last meeting. Everything we talked about feels so right, so real. I know I'm being cruel to Clara. I know I should tell her the truth, but not while she's pregnant. It would destroy her. Mom says I should stay with her until the baby is born, make sure everything goes smoothly, and then we can be together. I love you, Anna, more than life, and soon nothing will stand between us. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My stomach clenched, the IV pump ticking louder in my ears. Anna, a name I didn't know, a woman I didn't know. My husband loved someone else. He wasn't just drifting away, he was already gone. And Linda, dear, controlling Linda, knew. She had counseled him to stay with me only until the baby was born, like I was some temporary obligation. I pressed my hand against my belly, against the two fragile lives fighting inside me, and rage ignited. Rage so deep it burned through the haze of exhaustion, through the numbness of betrayal. This wasn't just neglect. It wasn't even just adultery. It was calculation. Cold, planned, approved by his mother. I clutched the phone until my knuckles whitened, my chest rising in shallow bursts. Images collided in my head. David smiling at his phone during Sarah's birthday. David turning his back to whisper into the night. David hesitating when I begged for help. His absence wasn't weakness. It was choice. I nearly called him then, nearly screamed into the receiver, every word burning my tongue, but the doctor's voice echoed in me. No stress. Not now. Not while the babies are at risk. And another voice, older, sharper, from my dream. Don't call. She's pretending. I pressed the phone to my chest and let the tears fall. My body shook silently so I wouldn't wake my mother in the chair beside me. By morning, my decision crystallized. I couldn't tell him I knew. Not yet. To show my cards now would be to invite danger I couldn't measure. If Linda could convince him to leave me on the floor unconscious, what else could she convince him to do? The doctor came in during rounds, her shoes soft against the linoleum. She noticed the red around my eyes immediately. Rough night? I found something, I admitted, voice hoarse. An email. He's cheating. With a woman named Anna, and his mother knows. Her expression softened, pity clouding her professional mask. She sat on the edge of the bed. I'm sorry, Clara. That's a heavy truth to carry now. What am I supposed to do? I'm lying here, half broken, with two babies who might not even survive, and I find out I'm nothing but a placeholder in his life. The doctor reached for my hand. Right now, you do nothing. You keep breathing, you keep calm, You let us take care of you. Later, when the babies are safe, you'll decide. But for now, don't let him know you've seen it. Don't give him that advantage." I nodded, though my chest burned with the urge to expose him, to rip the mask off in front of everyone, but I knew she was right. My children came first. That night, sleep dragged me back to the beach. This time I saw the two figures more clearly. Small boys, running, laughing. I ran after them, the sand still pulling me down. But then, just ahead of me, another figure appeared. Linda again, standing in the surf, her arms open. David beside her, holding hands with a faceless woman. And behind them, the weaker child faltered, stumbled, and began to fade. I woke, gasping, clutching my stomach. The monitor still beeped. 2 heartbeats. Alive. Still alive. But the dream clung like salt water on my skin. Later, when David came with another bouquet, I watched him set it down and smile as if nothing was wrong. He touched my hand, asked about the babies, told me he'd picked out cribs online. I smiled back, nodding, my voice calm, my face composed. Inside, I wanted to scream. And beneath the scream lay a question that curdled my blood. If he already planned to leave me, what reason did he have to keep these babies alive? It was a quiet evening in the ward. My mother had gone back to her rented room to rest, promising to return early in the morning. Jessica had left after bringing me a fresh set of pajamas and a smile that didn't quite mask her anger toward David. The hallway outside my room had settled into that familiar hush. Nurses speaking softly, the wheels of a cart squeaking faintly down the corridor. I was alone with the twins' uneven heartbeats, trying to stitch my nerves together after another day of pretending for David. The roses he'd brought sat wilting in their pitcher, petals sagging as if they, too, had grown tired of his lies. The knock startled me. Gentle, hesitant, nothing like the brusque way the nurses usually entered. "Come in," I called, expecting maybe the night nurse with my medication. But it wasn't a nurse. A young woman stepped inside, her hair a sheet of pale blonde falling over trembling shoulders. Her eyes were wide, nervous, darting around the room before finally settling on me. She clutched her bag strap as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. "Are you Clara?" she asked, voice thin. "Yes," I said cautiously. "Who are you?" She closed the door behind her, hands shaking. "My name is Anna." The name hit me like a stone. Anna. The name from the email. The one David had promised himself to. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. She must have seen my shock because she hurried forward, words tumbling over each other. "I know I shouldn't be here. I know it's wrong. But you need to know the truth, all of it." I stared at her, every nerve screaming. "The truth about what?" She swallowed hard, then sat on the edge of the visitor's chair, twisting her hands together. "I've been seeing your husband for months. We met at a corporate event, and at first it was nothing, just harmless conversation, flirting even. But then it grew, or at least I thought it did. He told me things, Clara, things about you, that your marriage was cold, that you didn't understand him, that you were more like roommates than partners." Her voice cracked. "He said he wanted to leave you, that he would. But then you got pregnant and everything changed. He told me he couldn't abandon you while you carried his child." I clutched the blanket tighter, bile rising in my throat. "And you believed him?" "I did," she admitted, her eyes wet with shame. "I loved him. I thought he loved me. But then I heard something I wasn't supposed to." My blood ran cold. "What did you hear?" Her hands trembled harder now, twisting the strap until it nearly broke. 3 days ago, I went to his apartment. He wasn't there, but his mother was. I didn't want to see her, so I stayed in the hallway, waiting. She was on the phone with him, and they didn't know I was listening. She lifted her gaze, eyes glassy with horror. "His mother said that the only way he could truly be free was if the baby didn't survive. She talked about pills, Clara. Pills that could be slipped into your food or drink, that would cause a miscarriage but look natural, and he didn't argue. He didn't say no. He agreed." The room spun. The monitor beeped wildly as my heart raced, the weaker twins' rhythm fluttering in response. "No," I whispered. "You're lying. You're lying." Anna shook her head, tears streaming now. "I swear to you, I'm not. I ended it with him that night. I couldn't be part of something so monstrous. And then I heard you were in the hospital, and I thought, God, what if they already tried? What if that's why you collapsed?" Her words sliced through me like glass. My collapse at Sarah's party. The dizziness, the sudden weakness, the way Linda had dismissed my pleas for help. Don't call, she's pretending. It all aligned, horrible and sharp. I pressed both hands to my belly, desperation flooding me. You're saying, David and his mother tried to kill my babies. Anna's face crumpled. Yes, and I'm so sorry, Clara. I didn't know. I never thought he was capable of something like this. But now, you have to be careful. Please don't eat or drink anything from them. Don't trust them. Not with your life, not with your children's lives. My throat burned with unshed sobs. Why tell me now? Because I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you, if something happened to them. You deserve the truth, even if it's unbearable. Silence filled the room, broken only by the monitor's uneven beeping. I looked at her, this woman who had been both my rival and, strangely, my unlikely savior. Thank you, I whispered, for telling me. Her eyes widened. You're not angry? I have no energy left for anger, I said softly. You didn't poison me. You didn't leave me unconscious on the floor. You were lied to, just like me. She nodded, tears falling faster. If you ever need anything, if you need me to speak to the police, to testify, I will. Just say the word. She scribbled her number on a scrap of paper and slid it onto the nightstand. When she left, the room felt emptier than before, but also sharper, like a wound freshly cleaned. The truth was out, and it was worse than betrayal. David hadn't just left me, he had tried to erase me, to erase us. The door closed behind her, and I lay there in the hum of machines, my body trembling. My children moved faintly beneath my hand, one kick strong, the other barely aflutter. I whispered to them, my voice breaking. Your father doesn't want you, but I do. I want you more than anything. I will protect you, whatever it takes. A nurse entered soon after to check my vitals. I told her everything, about the overheard conversation, about the pills. Her face grew grim. She promised to inform the doctor immediately. The young doctor who came later that night listened intently, his jaw tight. If what you're saying is true, Clara, then this isn't just a family problem. It's a crime. Do I have proof? I asked, my voice trembling. Maybe, he said. We can run tests. If there are traces of anything unusual in your blood, we'll find them. If there's evidence you were poisoned, it changes everything. A cold chill passed through me. Poison. The word itself felt lethal. I agreed to the tests, clinging to the hope that answers might finally come. But as the doctor drew my blood, one thought pulsed through me, as relentless as the monitor's beeping. If David and Linda were willing to go this far already, what would they do when they realized their plan had failed? The needle prick was nothing compared to the terror pooling in my chest. The young doctor labeled the vials, promised results within 24 hours, and urged me to rest. But how could I rest when every breath reminded me that poison might already be inside me, that my own husband and his mother had tried to kill the lives I carried? I lay there in the dim hospital light, staring at the ceiling crack that looked like lightning. My thoughts spun like a storm, every memory reshaping itself into a clue I had ignored. The dizziness at the party, the way David brushed off my pleas, Linda's sharp voice, "Don't call, she's pretending." They knew. They both knew why I was collapsing. By morning, I was hollowed out with dread. My mother returned at dawn, her face pale from lack of sleep but determined. She unpacked the bag she'd brought, fresh clothes, a thermos of soup, small comforts, and tried to mask her worry with chatter. But when she looked at me too long, her eyes filled with questions I couldn't answer yet. I couldn't tell her, not until I had proof. The hours dragged. I barely ate the hospital porridge, too nauseous with fear. Every time the door creaked open, I braced for David, or worse, Linda, to walk in with their false smiles and poisoned offerings. When the doctor finally returned that afternoon, he closed the door behind him and lowered his voice. "Clara," he said, "the tests are back." My heart thudded. "There are traces of a substance in your blood, misoprostol. In small doses, it can cause uterine contractions, increase the risk of miscarriage. Given your preeclampsia, it could easily have pushed you over the edge." I pressed my hands to my mouth, muffling the cry that escaped. Misoprostol. The word tasted like venom. "So it's true, they really tried." "Yes." His eyes softened, though his jaw remained tight. "Medically, you're stabilizing now. The drug is already leaving your system, but it's proof, legal proof, if you want to go to the police." I shook my head, tears burning. "Not now. I can't risk stress, court, investigations, not while my babies are still fighting." Then we preserve the results, he said. They'll be there when you're ready. But until then, Clara, you must be careful. Do not eat or drink anything except hospital food. Nothing from your husband, nothing from his mother, not a bite, not a sip. I nodded fiercely. I had already made that vow to myself the moment Anna left my room. But hearing it confirmed by a doctor felt like armor sliding into place. When my mother returned from the cafeteria, I smiled as if nothing had happened. When Jessica visited that evening with magazines and laughter, I pretended. I even let her leave the fruit she brought, though I didn't touch it. The fewer people who knew, the safer we would be. That night, David appeared, his arms full of offerings: apples, grapes, oranges, a bottle of pomegranate juice. He set them proudly on the table by my bed, his smile practiced. "For your hemoglobin," he said cheerfully. "Mom read that it helps." I forced a grateful smile, though my heart pounded. "Thanks, David. That's thoughtful." He reached for the grapes, plucked one, and held it to my lips. "Come on, eat. It'll make you stronger." Panic clawed my throat. I remembered Anna's trembling voice. Pills slipped into food or drink. I tilted my head, feigning reluctance. Actually, the doctor changed my diet. Strict hospital food only. Yesterday, my blood pressure spiked after I ate grapes, so no more. His hand froze midair, just for a second. Then he chuckled awkwardly and popped the grape into his own mouth. "Really? That's unlucky." "Yeah," I said, forcing calm. "Unlucky." I watched him gather the fruit back into the bag, watched his eyes flicker with something unreadable. Disappointment? Irritation? Something darker? When he left, promising to return tomorrow, I collapsed back against the pillow, shaking. Pretending had never been harder. The next day, Linda came with him. She swept into the room in a tailored suit, her hair perfectly styled, gold pendant gleaming against her chest. Her lips stretched into what the world might mistake for a grandmother's smile, but I saw the steel beneath it. "Clara, darling," she cooed, settling on the edge of my bed as if she owned it. "You gave us all such a scare. But thank heavens, the doctors say you're better now. And the babies, healthy, yes?" "The babies are fighters," I said evenly. Something flickered in her eyes, annoyance quickly masked. "Wonderful news," she said, though her voice dripped with insincerity. David stood by the window, hands shoved deep into his pockets, avoiding my gaze. Linda patted my hand with cold fingers. "I've been thinking, Clara. Twins are a lot for one woman. After you deliver, you and David should move in with me. I have a spacious apartment, 3 bedrooms. I can help with feedings, with everything. It would be so convenient." My skin prickled. I forced a smile. "Thank you, Linda, but we've already decided. We'll stay in our own apartment. My mom rented a place nearby to help. She wants to be there." Her lips thinned. "Your mother? She's not young, Clara. 2 newborns will exhaust her." "She's 53, I said coolly. "The same age as you, and she's full of energy." The jab landed. Her eyes narrowed, though her smile never slipped. "Well, think about it. I only want what's best for you." What she wanted was control. They left half an hour later, Linda irritated, David silent. As the door closed, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It felt like a battle won, even if only a small one. That evening, the doctor visited again, and I confided in her about Linda's offer. She listened gravely, then said, "You were right to refuse. They're dangerous, Clara. Keep your guard up." I nodded, my hand resting protectively on my belly. When I finally drifted into uneasy sleep, the dream returned. The beach, the 2 boys. This time, they stood side by side, hand in hand, watching me. Neither was fading. Both stood solid. And further down the shore, Linda watched, her face tight with something between anger and fear. I woke with tears on my cheeks and a whisper on my lips. "You're mine, both of you, and I'll protect you no matter what it costs." The following days unfolded with a strange, unsettling rhythm. David arrived like clockwork every afternoon, carrying the trappings of devotion, flowers, magazines, sometimes a stuffed toy he claimed would look perfect in the nursery. He sat beside my bed, his voice calm, his words carefully measured. He told me about work, about how colleagues asked after me, about how he couldn't wait to see the babies. To anyone else, he might have looked like the perfect husband, concerned, attentive, hopeful, but I had seen behind the mask. Every smile felt rehearsed, every word carried the weight of something unspoken. And so I played my role. I nodded. I smiled faintly. I let him believe I was still the woman who trusted him. But inside, my thoughts twisted like barbed wire, sharp and dangerous. Because now I knew the man sitting beside me, holding my hand, was the same man who had agreed to kill our children. The nurse reminded me daily to avoid stress. "Your blood pressure's improving," she said gently. "The twins are stabilizing. Don't let anything jeopardize that. Don't let anything jeopardize that." So I swallowed my fury. I smiled when David asked about names, even suggested a few, though the very sound of his voice made me nauseous. When he brought me a book of baby furniture, I traced my finger over the pictures, nodding as if I cared. Inside, I thought only of survival. At night, when Mom and Jessica returned, I let my guard drop. Mom would rub my shoulders, her eyes full of unspoken worry. Jessica would pace the room, her hands on her hips. "You can't let him keep coming here like this," Jessica hissed one evening after David left. "He's poisoning your air just by standing in the room." "Jess," I whispered, my voice thin, "if I ban him, he'll know I know. And then, I don't know what he'll do." My mother's hand tightened on mine. "She's right to be cautious," she said softly. "Right now, the babies come first. Every smile you fake is for them." I nodded. "Exactly. Let him believe I'm blind. It's safer that way." But pretending had its cost. Each night after they left, I lay in the dim hospital light, shaking from the effort of holding my mask in place. The monitor's twin beeps kept me tethered, one strong, one fragile, both alive. The dreams continued. The beach, the twins. Some nights one would flicker, fading until I screamed myself awake. Other nights, they stood together, their small hands clasped, their eyes locked on me as if urging me forward. And always, somewhere on that shifting shoreline, Linda's figure loomed, watching, waiting. One afternoon, David arrived with a softness that almost fooled me. He set a tiny pair of matching blue hats on the bed. "I thought they'd look good for the trip home," he said. Trip home. The words coiled inside me. Home, to him, meant our apartment, a place where poison might slip into my food again, where his mother could stroll in and take over. I forced a smile, stroking the knit fabric. "They're sweet." "They'll be perfect," he said, leaning closer. "Clara, I know I've made mistakes. I wasn't there when you needed me, but I'm here now. That's what matters, right?" I held his gaze, searching for a crack, for some glimmer of sincerity. All I saw was calculation. "Yes," I whispered, "that's what matters." His shoulders sagged in relief. He kissed my forehead, and for a moment I almost forgot the bitterness burning in me. Almost. Later that night, when the room was dark and quiet, I turned those tiny hats over in my hands. My tears dampened the fabric. "You'll wear them," I whispered to the babies inside me, but not for him, never for him. The next morning, the doctor pulled me aside after rounds. "Your blood pressure is stable. The smaller twins' numbers are improving. Whatever you're doing, Clara, keep doing it." I smiled faintly. Pretending was saving us. That evening, Jessica returned with a fierceness in her eyes. She sat on the edge of my bed and lowered her voice. "I did some digging," she said. "David hasn't just been distracted with work. He's been meeting Anna for months. And your mother-in-law? People at her building talk. She's been bragging about how you're too weak to handle twins, how they'll need her when you fail." Rage coiled through me. "They won't get them," I whispered. "Not ever." Jessica squeezed my hand. "Then we need a plan. Not just survival here, but what comes after. You can't go back to that apartment with him." "I know," my voice cracked. "I know." My mother joined us, her hand covering mine. "We'll make it work," she promised. "You and the babies will be safe. I'll see to it." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without dreaming of Linda. I dreamed instead of two boys running toward me across the sand, laughing, their hands still clasped. When I woke, the monitor showed both heartbeats steady, strong. For now, we were safe. But safety was only temporary. And I knew, when the moment came, when I finally confronted David with the truth, I would need every ounce of strength I had left. By the 35th week, the ward had become my world. The rhythm of beeping monitors, the antiseptic tang in the air, the scrape of nurses' shoes on linoleum, all of it wrapped around me like a cocoon. My body was tired, swollen, and scarred with IV bruises, but for the first time since collapsing at that party, I felt a fragile sense of control. Both babies were still alive, both still fighting. The doctors had been cautious from the start. "We'll try to get you as far as possible," my physician said, her voice calm but firm. "But with preeclampsia and twins, we can't risk waiting too long." We'll schedule a cesarean. It's the safest option for all three of you." The date was set. The morning circled on the calendar like a finish line, yet also the beginning of something new and terrifying. David grew oddly attentive as the day drew near. He brought more gifts, more flowers, more promises. He asked if I was nervous. I said yes. He said he was too. But the tremor in his voice wasn't excitement. It was something colder, something that made my skin crawl. On the last night before the surgery, my mother sat by my bed, her hand warm around mine. "You're ready," she whispered. "Whatever happens tomorrow, you'll be a mother. Twice over, that's what matters." Jessica chimed in with her typical bluntness. "And whatever else happens, you're not going back with him. Promise me, Clara. Promise us both." I nodded, tears gathering in my eyes. "I promise." The morning of the operation dawned bright and clear. Nurses wheeled me down the hallway, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. David walked beside the stretcher, clutching a bouquet of white roses so tightly that petals trembled loose and scattered to the floor. He bent over me, forcing a smile. "I'll be waiting just outside. The first face the babies see will be mine." "No," I whispered, the word slipping out before I could stop it. He frowned, confused, but the doors swung open and I was wheeled inside before I had to explain. The operating room was a world of sharp light and masked faces. My heart pounded as they numbed me from the waist down, as the blue drape rose like a curtain between me and the surgeons. I focused on the monitor, on the steady rhythm of 2 heartbeats. The procedure began. Pressure, not pain, spread through my abdomen, hands tugging, voices murmuring. And then, a cry. Thin, sharp, fierce. My first son. I sobbed, tears flooding my eyes. A minute later, another cry followed, just as strong. My second son, the one they feared wouldn't survive, announced himself to the world with stubborn defiance. "They're both here," the doctor said, her voice bright with relief. 2 healthy boys, 5 APGAR points each. They lifted them briefly for me to see. Identical, small, perfect. My sons. My miracle. I whispered their names, names I had chosen in secret, names David would never take from me. Ethan, Matthew. Ethan, meaning strong. Matthew, meaning gift from God. Tears slid down my temples as the doctors stitched me up. The boys were whisked to be checked and cleaned, but their cries echoed in my chest like thunder. When I was wheeled back to my room, David was waiting, pale and tense. Linda stood behind him, her smile stretched too wide. "How are you? How are the babies?" she asked, in a voice syrupy with false sweetness. "They're strong," I said, my voice trembling with pride. "Perfectly strong." For just a second, I saw it, the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. And in David's, too. They covered it quickly with smiles, but I had seen. They had expected weakness, tragedy. Instead, they were confronted with life, 2 new lives they had tried and failed to erase. "That's wonderful news," Linda said stiffly. "When can we see them?" "Soon," I replied. "The nurses are checking them." The nurse stepped in, firm as a wall. "The patient needs rest. Please come back during visiting hours." Linda opened her mouth to argue, but David touched her arm. They exchanged a look, silent, sharp, and then retreated. When the door shut, I exhaled in relief. An hour later, the boys were brought to me, swaddled in matching blue blankets. My arms trembled as I held them for the first time, one in each arm, their faces scrunched, their mouths searching. They rooted instinctively, and the nurse helped me nurse them, first one, then the other. It wasn't easy. It was awkward and new, but it was real. When they finished, I held them close, inhaling their newborn scent, memorizing the weight of them in my arms. "I swear to you," I whispered, my tears dripping onto their tiny foreheads, "I will protect you from everything, even from your father, especially from your grandmother. You are mine alone." That evening, Mom and Jessica arrived. They pressed against the glass of the nursery, eyes glowing with awe. "They're beautiful," Mom said, her hands trembling. 2 little angels. They look just like you when you were born. Jessica grinned fiercely. "They've already got your fight in them. Look at those little fists." I smiled, exhausted, overwhelmed, but filled with something I hadn't felt in months, hope. As night settled, I lay back with Ethan and Matthew at my side, their small bodies rising and falling with each breath. I thought of the beach, of the 2 figures that had haunted my dreams. Tonight, they no longer flickered or faded. Tonight, they stood tall, solid, alive. And this time, Linda was nowhere in sight. The first days after the birth blurred together in a haze of exhaustion and wonder. I learned to cradle two small bodies at once, to soothe one while the other cried, to breathe in the sweetness of their tiny sighs as if it were air itself. Ethan and Matthew were my world now, my reason to fight, my proof that light could survive even the darkest betrayal. David came daily, his arms full of flowers, toys, and forced cheer. Linda appeared twice, draped in her heavy jewelry, her smile all sugar and no warmth. They cooed over the boys through the glass, but were shooed away by nurses before they could linger too long. I played the part of the polite wife, murmuring thanks, nodding faintly, all while keeping my fury caged behind my ribs. But inside, I was no longer afraid. I had proof now. The lab results, carefully documented by the doctor, Anna's number, her willingness to testify, and my own memory of collapsing while Linda's voice rang in my ears. Don't call, she's pretending. I would not return to their home. I would not let them near my children. I waited. I planned. And when the day of discharge arrived, I was ready. Mom and Jessica arrived early, carrying baby clothes, diapers, and a brand new twin stroller. We dressed the boys in matching blue onesies and hats. I slipped the folded lab results and Anna's written statement into a folder inside my bag. My hands shook, but not from fear, from resolve. At 10 o'clock, David appeared with yet another bouquet of roses. His smile faltered when he saw us packed and ready, the stroller by the door. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice too sharp. "I thought we'd all go home together." I looked him in the eye, steady as stone. "We need to talk, David, now." He laughed nervously. "Talk? We can talk at home. Come on, Clara. The boys' nursery is waiting." "No." My voice cut through the air like glass. "Not your home. Not with you. Not ever again." His smile broke, twisting into something harder. "What are you saying?" "I know everything." My words trembled, but my gaze didn't. "The affair with Anna. The emails you tried to hide. The plan to leave me after the birth. And worst of all, the pills. The poison you and your mother slipped into my food to get rid of the babies." He froze, color draining from his face. Mom stepped closer, her voice fierce. "Clara and the children are coming with me. You will not interfere. You will not come near them again." David stammered, "This is insane. She's imagining things. Postpartum depression, that's all." "Don't lie." My hand shook as I pulled the folder from my bag, slamming it onto the table. Lab results from the hospital. Traces of misoprostol in my blood. Proof. And Anna's statement. She overheard everything, your mother telling you the only way you could be free was if the babies didn't survive. "You agreed, David. You agreed." His jaw worked soundlessly, like a man drowning. You can't prove." "I can. And if you don't leave us alone, I will. The police, the courts, the world, they'll all know what you did." Jessica's voice cut in, sharp as a blade. "A father who tries to murder his own children has no rights. None." David's fists clenched at his sides. For a moment I thought he might lash out, but then he saw the folder, the fire in my mother's eyes, the unyielding rage in Jessica's stance. He saw his corner closing in. Finally he whispered, "Fine, you win." "No," I said coldly. "I don't win. Ethan and Matthew win. They survived you, and now they'll live without you." His face twisted, desperation leaking through. "You're taking them away from me, from their father. You forfeited that title the moment you tried to end their lives," I spat. "From this day on, you are nothing to them. Nothing." For a long moment he stood there, trembling, his eyes darting between me and the stroller, where the boys slept peacefully. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed out of the room. Linda wasn't with him that day, but I could feel her shadow just the same, lingering like a curse we had barely escaped. When the door shut, the weight of months lifted from my chest. My knees buckled, and my mother caught me, holding me upright. "You did it, sweetheart," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You protected them." Jessica hugged me from the other side, fierce and unyielding. "They'll never touch you again. We won't let them." I looked down at Ethan and Matthew, their tiny faces serene in sleep, their fists curled like they were ready to fight the world. My sons. My miracle. And in that moment, I vowed aloud, so there could be no mistake, they will never take you from me. Not him, not her, never. The morning of our discharge felt unlike any other day. The air in the ward was the same, antiseptic, humming with machines, but to me, it smelled like freedom. Mom helped me into my clothes while Jessica fussed over Ethan and Matthew, strapping them carefully into the brand new stroller. My body was still sore from surgery, every movement slow, but my heart beat with a strength I hadn't felt in months. When the nurse wheeled me to the entrance, David was nowhere to be seen. I'd half expected him to try again, to throw himself in front of us with his false apologies and desperate words. But he didn't come. Maybe he finally understood, or maybe fear kept him away, the kind of fear only proof, witnesses, and the threat of prison can inspire. Mom held the taxi door open, steadying me as I slid into the seat. She settled the stroller in beside us, the twins sleeping peacefully, their little hats bobbing with each breath. Jessica climbed in last, her eyes scanning the street as if Linda herself might leap out from the shadows. As the car pulled away, I looked back once, at the hospital window where I had spent weeks fighting, at the place where Ethan and Matthew had been born. It was both battlefield and sanctuary, the place that saved us. Then I turned forward, to the road, to the future. "Home, sweetheart," Mom whispered, her hand over mine. I nodded, tears slipping free. Home! Those first months were harder than I could have imagined. 2 newborns, endless nights without sleep, the ache of healing, the constant fear that David or Linda might try to find us. But we managed. We survived. Mom became my anchor, rocking the boys at dawn when my arms trembled with exhaustion, cooking meals when I forgot to eat, reminding me every day that I wasn't alone. Jessica fought like a warrior on the outside, helping me with paperwork, speaking to lawyers, making sure the lab results and Anna's statement were documented and safe. We built a fortress around Ethan and Matthew, one made not of walls, but of love, vigilance, and truth. David tried twice to call me. Once he left a voicemail, voice trembling, begging to see the babies. The second time, he said nothing at all, just silence, breathing, as if he wanted me to know he was still out there. I didn't answer. Neither did Mom. Eventually, the call stopped. Linda never reached out. Perhaps she knew better than her son. Or perhaps she was already scheming from a distance, waiting for weakness. I didn't care. Their absence was the only gift I wanted from them. A year passed. On the boys' first birthday, I sat in Mom's kitchen, sipping tea while Ethan toddled on unsteady legs toward the toy box, and Matthew babbled at his grandmother, reaching for her necklace with chubby fingers. Laughter filled the small apartment. Jessica had come with balloons, and Mom had baked a cake with bright blue frosting that stained all our lips. I looked around at the scene, my heart swelling until it hurt. We had made it. Through betrayal, through poison, through abandonment, we had made it. The woman I had been a year ago, sitting alone in a hospital bed with her world collapsing, felt like a ghost. I was different now, stronger, sharper. My trust had been shattered, yes, but in its place grew something sturdier. The determination to protect my children, to carve out a life where no one could harm them again. Sometimes, in the quiet of night, I still thought of David, the man I once loved, the man who had whispered to my belly and called our child Little Star. I wondered if he regretted what he'd done. I wondered if he thought of Ethan and Matthew, but those thoughts faded quickly. Because regret doesn't erase choices, and his choices had been clear. As for Linda, I hoped I'd never see her again. The image of her smirking on the shore in my dreams had finally faded. She no longer haunted me. She was nothing more than a warning carved into memory of what power and control can destroy if you let them. That night, after the candles were blown out and the boys fell asleep in their cribs, I stood by the window and looked at the city lights. "I promise you," I whispered to them, though they couldn't hear, "I will always love you, always protect you. You will never be pawns in someone else's game. You are mine, my Ethan, my Matthew, my future." I smiled, the kind of smile I thought I'd lost forever. Because finally, after everything, I was free. And for the first time in a long time, I was happy.